Sephiria has just left early access and reached 1.0, bringing the final chapter, more bosses, and a lot more content. Except this game explains almost nothing to you. I learned most things by dying. A lot. So here are 10 advanced tips I wish I knew before my first run. I am Mary, and the video is about to start. A lot of people treat tablets as just another passive bonus, but when you truly understand the patterns, the scale of the game practically changes. It is not just about having strong artifacts, it is about positioning them the right way. What got me the most was realizing that randomly stacking powerful relics does not work. If it is not within an active pattern, full line, cross, column, you are wasting potential, and Sephiria does not forgive that kind of inefficiency. When you line everything up properly, the power boost is not small. It's the kind of boost that completely transforms a mediocre run into something broken. In practice, this completely changes how you build. I started prioritizing space and positioning even before choosing new artifacts. Sometimes it's better to take something okay that fits perfectly into an active pattern than a strong relic that sits outside the geometry. And when you manage to set up a cross or a full line involving your main artifacts, you can immediately feel the impact on damage, survival, everything. Mastering this tablet logic is basically understanding the heart of the game. It's not just an extra system, it is the system that defines how far you will go in a run. When you start thinking about patterns before raw power, Sephiria stops being a difficult roguelike and becomes a game where you completely control your growth. And that, to me, is where it truly shines. In Sephiria 1.0, it is very easy to get excited about tablets and start filling up your inventory thinking you were getting stronger. But in practice, you might be doing the exact opposite. Because at the end of the day, a tablet without a well-positioned artifact is dead space. The game creates an interesting mental trap. You see those patterns and think, the more tablets, the better. But no. Each of them takes up a precious slot, and if you do not have enough artifacts to activate those patterns, you are just sacrificing consistency. I have had runs that looked promising, but completely stalled because I did not have the space to fit the relics that would actually make a difference. Once you unlock more space, this management becomes even more critical. This is where a lot of people mess up, thinking they gained total freedom, when in reality, they gained more responsibility. The ideal is to maintain a very conscious balance. Enough tablets to activate strong patterns, but never to the point of limiting your build options. I started treating each tablet as an investment. If it is not boosting something concrete, it doesn't deserve to be there. This tip completely changes how you view your inventory. It's not about filling it up, it's about efficiency. When you get this proportion between tablets and artifacts right, the game flows much better, and your builds start scaling consistently. Sephiria rewards those who think of space as a resource, not just storage, and this mindset makes all the difference in more advanced runs. This adjacency trigger mechanic is where Sephiria 1.0 starts separating those who just play from those who truly understand the system. Because here, having a strong artifact is not enough. You need to respect exactly where it wants to be. And when the game asks for something like with no adjacent items or positioned on the edge, it is basically forcing you to rethink your entire inventory layout. The most common mistake, and I have fallen for this a lot, is taking one of these artifacts and simply trying to jam it in without messing with the rest. It does not work. These items are almost like centerpieces of a build, and their positioning dictates how everything else needs to be organized. Sometimes you even need to temporarily weaken other synergies just to properly activate a single artifact that, when used well, makes up for everything. And that is where a habit that changes your game level comes in, reorganizing your inventory always after bosses, because that is when your build makes those bigger leaps. You game new items, remove others, and the old layout simply stops making sense. An experienced player does not carry on with a cluttered inventory out of inertia. They stop, analyze, and rebuild everything thinking about these more demanding triggers. Mastering this completely transforms your run consistency. You stop depending on the luck of getting good items and start extracting the maximum out of any artifact that shows up. Sephiria heavily rewards those who treat inventory as a dynamic puzzle, and these adjacency triggers are exactly the kind of system that elevates the game to another level once you learn how to actually use them. The perfect guard is not just a bonus, it is the key to maintaining your offensive rhythm without becoming hostage to your MP bar. The first thing you need to internalize is that blocking always costs MP, and if you just keep holding down the defense button, you will reach a point where your bar drains to 0 and you will be vulnerable right when you need it most. The perfect guard comes in as an elegant solution. By hitting the exact timing of the enemy attack, you drastically reduce the MP cost of that block. This means you can maintain an aggressive defensive stance for much longer without the fear of being exposed. What makes this mechanic even genius is how it connects with the rest of the combat system. In sword and shield builds, the perfect guard often triggers extra effects, like reducing the cost of the next special attack or even completely nullifying the MP spent on it. This creates a reward loop. You defend with precision, save resources, and immediately turn that economy into damage or control. It is the kind of flow that makes you feel completely in control of the encounter, even against chaotic bosses. In practice, my advice is train your eye for enemy attack patterns and use the perfect guard as a resource management tool, not just defense. On higher floors, where every single point of MP counts, mastering this timing is what will allow you to keep sword and shield builds viable and even lethal. If you are just starting out, focus on learning to read the enemy blow instead of reacting in desperation, because when perfect guard becomes muscle memory, the game completely shifts to another level. When you are cornered by hordes, the temptation is to just mash buttons and hope for the best. But the shield cleave gives you an active tool to create space and breathe. And the best part, it rewards those who play with timing and precision. The secret lies in the relationship between blocking, perfect guard, and MP cost. Holding down block already protects you, but spending MP to perform the cleave while maintaining defense is what allows you to slash in a 360-degree radius and push surrounding enemies away. The catch is that a successful guard reduces the cost, and a perfect guard zeroes out the cleave cost, making the only consumed mana that of the perfect guard itself. This means that if you read the attacks and nail the timing, you basically turn defense into free offense. In practice, this becomes your main crowd control resource in the tightest situations. Instead of trying to run away and expose yourself, you maintain pressure, wait for the right moment to land the perfect guard, and then unleash the cleave without worrying about MP. This not only saves your life, but opens up space for you to reposition, aim at the next enemy with the right stick, and continue dictating the combat rhythm. What makes this technique advanced is not just the motion, but the combat reading it demands. You need to identify which enemies are worth the MP expense, which can be staggered just with a regular attack, and where it is worth investing in a perfect guard to zero out the cleave. When you internalize this cycle, blocking, timing it right, counterattacking for free, and clearing the area, Sephiria stops being a chaotic survival game and becomes a dance of offensive defense. In the beginning, it is very tempting to invest in damage or anything that directly boosts your DPS. But when you discover the potential of the dash with accelerated recovery, the game's rhythm simply changes. You stop reacting to attacks and start controlling the combat. The secret lies in this almost continuous cycle of invulnerability. When you prioritize swiftness early and reach those level 10 and 20 milestones, the dash stops being just an escape tool and practically turns into a constant state of safety. Against fast bosses who normally apply heavy pressure, this is absurd. You can phase through entire attack patterns without taking damage just by chaining dodges at the right timing. The most interesting part is how this changes your mindset during a run. Instead of playing more cautiously or defensively, you start playing with confidence, stepping into attack windows more often because you know you have a consistent out. I started noticing that even fights that used to feel unfair become much more manageable when you master this dash rhythm. This build is not just about survival, it is about stability. You drastically reduce your dependence on luck or specific items because your defensive foundation is already sorted out. And in a roguelike like Sephiria, that is way too powerful. When you reach this point of near continuous invulnerability, many bosses stop being a threat and become more of an execution test than anything else. This is one of the most underrated mechanics in Sephiria 1.0, and in my experience, it is the kind of stat that makes the difference between ending a run with mediocre items and walking out carrying legendaries that carry the endgame. Willpower is not just a support stat, it is a probability manipulation tool that you directly control. What many people do not realize is that willpower does not just increase your luck in an abstract way. It directly affects the quality of dice rolls in tower events, meaning you start seeing better, more frequent, and more consistent options throughout the run. This includes everything from the amount of starting dice you receive to the capacity of the wishing fountain, which is where many builds truly take off or die. In practice, investing in willpower is like buying insurance against bad luck. In serious runs, where every loot decision determines whether you will reach the final boss or not, having this stat high gives you a much larger margin for error. You stop relying exclusively on pure luck and start having active influence over what the game offers you, and that is power, especially at higher difficulties. My advice is do not treat willpower as a secondary talent. If you are putting together a build that relies on legendary items or specific synergies, put points into it early on. The difference between 5 and 10 points might be exactly what separates a legendary drop from a common item at a crucial moment. In Sephiria, probability control is just as important as raw damage, and willpower is your lever for that. Each rabbit skin is not just cosmetic. It drastically redefines your starting stats, like trading HP regeneration for higher MP capacity, or prioritizing evasion and dash instead of raw damage. This forces you to think from the very first minute about which direction your run will take, because the choice of base outfit already pushes your playstyle down a specific path. The most interesting point is that the costume acts as the foundation of your long-term strategy. If you intend to evolve a spear, which usually demands more mobility and sustain, it makes sense to choose a skin that boosts dash, evasion, or regeneration. On the other hand, if your idea is to go for a heavy sword, which usually scales with damage and MP, a skin that prioritizes mana capacity and elemental damage puts you in a much more comfortable position down the road. It is a high-level decision because you're not just reacting to what the game gives you, you're planning the end of the run right from the start. This also creates an extra layer of depth in the talent tree because the costume and the weapon need to talk to each other. A build focused on elemental damage, for example, can be completely wasted if you choose a skin that does not give you enough MP to sustain the abilities. Likewise, trying to make a survival build with high regeneration and evasion doesn't work if you pick a weapon that requires you to trade blows up close without the necessary MP or damage capacity. Synergy between outfit and weapon is what makes a build truly click and become consistent. Mastering this stage-dependent costume swap is what turns Sephiria into a roguelike of constant decision-making, not just luck. You learn to read which weapons are available, which talents you plan to take, and from there, choose the skin that best supports that plan. It is the kind of mechanic that makes you pause, think, and then feel like every run is unique because you built it from scratch with logic behind it, and not just because the game handed you random items. The game was designed to reward focus, and ignoring that means leaving damage and consistency on the table. When you choose one or two main tags like Frost or Glacier, Burn or Solar Blade, Companion, Stormcloud, Shadow, or Planet, and build everything around them, you're not just stacking bonuses, you are efficiently activating the tablet system, making every artifact you pick up have more impact. And the catch comes with bond artifacts, which connect two combos and multiply what you already have. But they only work if you have enough focus to activate their conditions. The classic mistake is taking a little bit of everything, because it feels like you are adapting to what the game offers you. In reality, you are diluting your potential. A build with 5 different tags will never scale as hard as one with 2 well-executed tags, because the tablets will not trigger full bonuses, and you will miss out on the most powerful endgame effects. In Sephiria, depth beats breadth. Always. Enter the run already knowing which 1 or 2 combos you want to force, and ruthlessly discard any artifact that does not feed into that direction. It sounds restrictive, but it is precisely this restriction that unlocks the real potential of the system. When you see a Frost Glacier build with 80% active synergy melting bosses in seconds, you understand that focus is not a limit, it is a multiplier. Every time you pick up a new artifact or tablet, the right response is to pause and reorganize everything from scratch. It feels like a waste of time at first, but it is precisely in this care that the game rewards those who treat each slot as part of a larger plan. The central goal is simple to understand, but hard to execute well. Stack as many levels as possible into your main artifacts. Instead of spreading upgrades all over the place, you concentrate everything into a few key items, making them scale absurdly. It is the difference between having 5 mediocre artifacts and 2 that carry the entire run. Constantly reorganizing forces you to ask, is this still worth the space, or is it just taking up room? Tablets come in as the piece that makes the puzzle snap together. The secret is to position them so they overlap with the slots of the artifacts you want to strengthen, creating adjacency bonuses and triggering extra effects. Rotating tablets constantly is essential because the grid changes with every new piece, and what worked 2 minutes ago might be sabotaging you now. It is a living process, almost like solving a puzzle that remakes itself on every floor. Those who master this constant reorganization stop depending purely on luck and start building active advantage. Each artifact and tablet becomes part of a coherent plan, and not just a random item that dropped on the floor. Is it hard work? Absolutely, but it is precisely this care that makes Sephiria reward those who think with the grid so much, and not just with the attack button.